Hi everybody, I'm Alana from New Zealand. Today I'm going to take 5 random items that were destined for the dumpster and I'm going to make them over and create some beautiful home decor. With the content on this channel, I hope to inspire you with arts and crafts that reduce waste and are easy on your pocket. So stick around, see what you think. If you're enjoying my content, please give me a thumbs up and share and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Either way, I'm just happy that you stopped by. You're watching the crafting channel at Upcycling NZ. Let's upcycle. For project number 1, I'm taking this hardboard sign. I picked this up for free on a curbside salvage day. The image on the front was peeling off, so I'm going to remove it all, and most of it came off really easily. There was a little bit that was a bit more difficult to remove, so I sprayed it with water and that enabled me to scrape it off with a plastic spatula. After that was removed, all that was left was a sticky residue on the surface and I washed that off with a damp cloth. The surface is now lovely and smooth and it's ready for paint, so I'm taking some chalk paint in the colour Sage and I'm going to give it a generous coat all over. I'm ensuring that I'm painting those edges too. My plan is to create some crackle paint, and you do that by applying a generous coat of PVA glue. Now I did this and I allowed it to dry just a little bit and then painted another layer of chalk paint over the top in white. However, I've learned that chalk paint does not go well with a layer of glue between 2 different chalk paints. I think it might have worked better if I had sealed my chalk paint first. I got a little bit of crackle, but it wasn't what I was going for. So I've pivoted and I'm going to take some house paint, and this colour's Cracker Green. This is an exterior house paint and it's one of the remnant colours that I craft with. I collect remnants of paint from thrift stores and from junkyards so that it doesn't end up in the landfill. This colour was left over from a house that I painted. I'm taking a small offcut of wood and I'm going to spread that paint across the board. And after a couple of swipes, I'm getting that weather-worn old paint look that I'm looking for. Next I want to apply a stencil, and I've got this French garden themed stencil and I'm going to use modelling paste. This was my first time trying modelling paste and I've spread it out across the stencil and removed as much of the excess as possible. This was so easy, you guys. I absolutely love this stuff. I thought it was made of plaster of Paris, but once it was applied and I had waited for it to dry, it was very hard and durable. I'm not sure what it's made of, but I absolutely love this stuff and I'll be using it again. Now I'm taking another stencil and I'm going to extend my graphic because I wanted it to be a bit bigger in the centre. So I've masked off the parts I didn't want and I'm adding the little French address at the bottom and this lovely fancy detail. I also applied some of that fancy detail to the top. Next I want to take some air dry clay, and I thought I'd purchase the white version, but this is actually the terracotta one. It's okay though, I can work with it. I'll be painting it. I'll cut off the amount that I need, and then what I always do with my air dry clay is cover it up, seal it back up and put it back in the packet before I even start to work with it. I'm warming that clay up in my hands and just kneading it a little bit to make it more pliable. Then I'm going to take this little mould, and I think it's a candle mould. I picked this up for only $1 at a Kmart, one of the department stores here in New Zealand. And I've just applied a little bit of cornstarch and I'll tap out any excess. That will help the clay come out of the mould easily. Now I'll just press my clay in as evenly as possible and make sure that it's making contact with all the areas on the other side. And then I'll just use my fingers to ease that out of the mould. Now I'll just do a little reshaping with my rose, and I'm going to make 6 of these for my board. I'm using an epoxy glue to attach these. You could use any strong glue, and I'm just spreading that out as close to the edges as possible. I'm doing this while the clay is still soft, and ideally it would be better to paint it while it's soft, but I needed to wait for my glue to cure. This helps to prevent the clay from cracking as it dries. But I had no cracks, and now I'm just going to paint my roses in with that Karaka green, and I'm just feathering the colour around the edges. I gave it 2 coats, and then I sponged on some white to bring out those highlights in the roses. I tried softening the green with the white, but it wasn't really working, so I've removed it. And I'm just going to take a little emery board and sand back some of that green. So next I'm going to recycle these old brass kitchen cupboard doorknobs, and they've come off my brother's house when he renovated his kitchen. These are really heavy and they're really old. So I eyeballed where I wanted them to go and marked the holes, and now I'm just going to run a drill and create 3 holes for the screws to go through. And before I attach the little doorknobs, I'm going to give this a coat of clear wax, and I apply that with a shaving brush all over. That's going to seal in all of that chalk paint and the modelling paste, and it gives it a little bit of water resistance as well. I'm going to make sure I get a lot into the sides there. The product is Feast & Watson's soft wax, and I think they make it for furniture, so you buff it off after about 10 or 15 minutes. So in case you're wondering what I'm making, this can be hung in your mudroom or your foyer or your patio to hang coats or umbrellas. You could hang it in your kitchen to hang your tea towels from. You could also hang it in your bathroom and hang your towels from it. I'll drill my screws in most of the way, and then I'll finish it off with a screwdriver. And I do that so that I don't ever strip my screws. I won't attach a hanging system to this because really it needs to be attached directly to a wall, and then it can take a lot of weight. I could leave this just as it is, but I'm going to add a little bit of age to go with those old doorknobs, and I'm taking a chippy brush and I'm going to get a lot of clear wax into the bristles of the brush. Then I'm going to mix it with this antiquing wax. I didn't want it too dark, which is why I've added the clear wax. And I'm just lightly going to brush that on, and I'll do sections at a time and then remove most of it with a paper towel. If you find some areas get too dark, you can take a wet wipe and dab away some of the antiquing wax. Another way you can do it is to take another paper towel, put a bit of clear wax on it, and that will act like an eraser, and you can start to remove some of the colour back that way. And then this project's pretty much done. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Now moving on to project number 2. In the free bins at the thrift store I found this old clock face. It's on a particle board, and I'll remove the sticker from the back and the graphic from the front, and again when the paper wouldn't lift off the surface I sprayed it with water to help remove it. I'll be painting this black, and I'm using another paint remnant salvaged from a junkyard, and this is an interior black acrylic. I'll use this side for the back of my project, and once it was dry I flipped it over and I've taken some embossed wallpaper. I got this for only $1 at a thrift store, and it's got a beautiful pattern on it. Wallpaper is such an excellent thing to recycle for your arts and crafts. The leftover rolls are always cheap and you get a lot on a roll. Now I'm taking some PVA glue and I'm going to put a really generous coat of that all over the board. Now I'll attach my board to the paper, and I'm going to press down and smooth that out so that I have no air bubbles. I'll trim the wallpaper close to the board all the way around, and then I'm going to place a nice heavy book on it to allow that to dry flat. Next I'm taking my sanding block with a heavy grit sandpaper, and using a downward motion I'm removing any excess paper and creating a nice clean edge. I'm finding the hole in the centre and pushing a pencil through to open it up. Then using the same black I'm going to paint all the way around the outer portion of the circle, and I'll leave the inside for another colour. I have another paint remnant and it's kind of a turquoise or aqua colour. I'll paint that in the centre, and then I want a greener colour, so I'm going to take some blue acrylic paint and some lime green acrylic paint, and I'll just blend that with a sponge around that band between the two colours. Then to tie all these colours together I'm taking a hard bristle brush, and I'm going to start to feather that or stipple that all the way around, working from the centre and working my way out. Then I'll take a sponge and start to blend that outer black colour into the green. Then I'm using a combination of two techniques until I've got the effect that I'm looking for. I want to go steampunk with this project, so I'm starting to add the metallic paints. This is a gold metallic, and I'm going to use a little sponge dauber to lightly apply that to the surface and allowing a little bit of the colour behind it to show through. I've worked my way from the centre out towards the black, and then I'm going to do the outer band of black with a copper metallic paint. I'm still using the sponge dauber for this, and I'll work my way all the way around to the edge of my board. I wanted to create a coppery metallic look, and I think I've achieved that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now I want to make use of this garden wind wheel that had broken. It's very, very bright, so I'm going to be painting this. But first I'm going to give it a really good clean with a wet wipe and remove any dust. I'll start with an undercoat of black again, and I'm going to paint all over every surface on this wind wheel. I waited for that to dry to do the other side, and I've given this just the one coat. Then when that had dried, I came back with some more of the copper paint, which is a metallic acrylic, and I'll put a generous coat on one side. I want this to look like the blades of a fan or a propeller, so I'm giving it two really good coats to make that colour more solid. Once that was dry, I added some more gold with a sponge and just stippled it around the ends of the blades of the fan. I think that made this piece really pop, and I'm loving how it's looking. I'll just bend the blades back into place. They've gotten a wee bit flattened out due to the process, and it spins quite nicely. Now I'm going to attach it to my board. And I didn't have the right fitting, so I'm taking a variety of different pieces that I had, a bit of glue, and I'm assembling them in a way that allows the fan to continue to spin once it's put together. Now I'll drill a hole and create somewhere for it to hang to the wall. I'll put another one of these little brass pieces in here to tidy up the finish. And I have a little piece of electrical wire with copper wires running through it, and I'm going to pull some of that out. And I'll use a piece of that to create a little hanger in the back just by folding it over and pushing the loop through the hole. For a little bit of interest, I wound the ends around a skewer stick and bent them right back to hold it in place. And this piece is done. Let me know what you think of my little steampunk wall hanging. For project number 3, I'll be using these old leftover cork flooring tiles, and these were put out for free outside someone's property on curbside salvage day. I'll be using these to create placemats, and I want to get rid of that sharp corner, so I'm just going to sand some rounded edges into all 6 placemats. The tiles have a smooth side and a slightly rougher side, so today I'll be working on the smoother side. I have 6 of these stencils, all the same size with a French theme, and I'll be putting one of these on each placemat. I'm using the same black paint, and I thought I'd stencil it directly onto the placemat, but I found that it bled too much. So I pivoted on that, and I'm going to draw around the stencil shape and paint that in the black colour. I'll repeat that on all 6 placemats, and that should help reduce bleeding when I go to stencil over the top. I'll use masking tape to hold the stencil in place, and I'm going to use a white chalk paint in the colour Snow. I'll apply it using a hard bristled paintbrush, which seems to work the best for me. And I'm offloading most of the paint, and then I'm just going to stipple it on lightly, and I'll just continue to build the colour up by going over it again. I don't want to have too much paint on the paintbrush or it will bleed. And then when I peeled it back, I was so much happier I'd made that mistake earlier and went with the black background, because these just came out beautifully. But with stencils being stencils, they never come out 100%, and I'm being a little bit anal because it really wasn't a problem, but I'm just tidying up a couple of little bleed through spots, which I had on just a couple of them. I'm using Feast & Watson's Soft Wax, which is a clear wax, to seal in all that chalk paint and to seal all of the corkboard itself. I'll also use it to seal the backs of the placemats and the sides. By the time I'd finished the last one, the first one was ready to buff back, and I'm just giving it a light buff and removing any excess of that clear wax. I found that the cork had soaked up a lot of that clear wax, so it was mainly the label that needed buffing back. Now I'm going to take some jute twine, and I've got a length of leather cord, or I think it's called leather thonging, and I'm going to put those together in a long strand and tie it both ways around the boards, and put a little jute bow into the centre and tie another bow over the top. Or you could move the bow to the corner so that the print is more obvious. So this is finished. Let me know what you think in the comments. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some inspiration. I try to post every week, and I have a playlist of craft shorts on my channel. You can watch those and find the videos that you'd really like to watch by clicking on the link below them. You could really help me out to get more visibility on YouTube by liking, sharing and subscribing. Bye for now. Hope to see you again.